I wiped my hands on a towel and called out, "Richard, are you coming to dinner? The food's getting cold." "I'll be right there," he shouted from the hallway. A moment later I heard the metallic click of the basement lock. That sound always made my stomach knot. I asked lightly, "Do you really have to lock it every night? No one's going down there but us." Richard sat at the table, knife and fork already in hand. "It's just for safety. You never know who might wander in." I forced a smile. "Who would wander into our basement, Richard? The kids are grown. We don't even have neighbors dropping by." He looked at me the way he always did when I questioned him. Flat, sharp, like I'd asked something stupid. "You worry too much. Eat." I swallowed hard, nodding. "All right. Just seems unnecessary, that's all." For a moment, silence stretched. I tried again, softer. "Do you spend much time down there? I've noticed you disappear." He cut into his meat with a scrape of metal on porcelain. "You notice too much. It's storage. Boxes, old junk. Nothing you'd care about." 3 hours the other night didn't sound like nothing. The words slipped before I could stop them. His fork froze mid-air. 3 hours. Yes. I was sitting right here waiting. I checked the clock. Richard's jaw flexed. I lost track of time. I searched his face. "Doing what?" "Don't start." His voice carried that finality I'd learned not to push. Still I whispered, "Richard, it worries me. You always tell me not to go down there. You always lock it. Because you don't need to." His tone sharpened. "You've lived in this house 25 years without stepping foot down there. Why start now?" I lowered my eyes. Sometimes I feel like you're hiding something." The chair scraped as he stood. His shadow loomed across the table. "You think I'd hide anything from you? After all these years?" "I don't know what to think anymore," I admitted, my voice trembling. "You disappear, you shut me out. It feels like you don't trust me." Richard leaned close, his breath warm, his tone icy. "If you trusted me, you wouldn't be asking." I clenched the towel in my lap. "Trust works both ways." For a moment his eyes narrowed, but then he pulled back, sat down again and started eating as if nothing happened. "You're imagining things. You always do when you're alone too long." I whispered, "I'm not imagining. I feel it." He didn't look up. "You feel too much. That's your problem." I sat in silence, the ticking of the kitchen clock louder than our breaths. My food cooled untouched. Finally I said, "When the children were small, you used to laugh more. You weren't so closed off." Richard smirked. "Children change things. Responsibilities. Bills. You think life is supposed to stay light." "No," I admitted. "But I thought marriage meant sharing everything. Not locking parts of your life away." His fork hit the plate with a clang. "Enough." I flinched, then murmured, "All right." We finished the meal without another word. When he rose, he kissed the top of my head mechanically, almost like habit. "Don't wait up. I've got paperwork." "Down there again?" I asked softly. He paused, then gave me that look, the warning one. "Yes. Down there again. Don't touch the door." After he left, I sat frozen in my chair. The house felt hollow, filled only with the hum of the refrigerator and the echo of the lock sliding shut. I whispered into the emptiness, "Why 3 hours, Richard? Why always the basement?" The clock ticked louder as if mocking my silence. I hugged myself and listened for footsteps that wouldn't return for hours. I thought of calling Eleanor or Michael, but what would I say? That their father locked a door too often? That their mother sounded paranoid? They'd brush it off just as he wanted. So I stayed quiet the same way I had for decades. But inside me, a seed of doubt had already taken root. I pressed my palm against the table, steadying myself. "One day," I whispered, "I'll find out." And that night, for the first time in years, I did not sleep. The next morning, Richard sipped his coffee without looking at me. I said gently, "You came to bed late again. What keeps you up so long?" He didn't raise his eyes. "Paperwork. Always paperwork," I murmured. "Even after retirement?" His spoon clinked against the cup. "You're starting again." I sighed. "I'm not starting anything. I just miss talking to you." Richard's voice flattened. "Talk about what? The weather? Bills? You think life's a storybook?" I pressed my hands around my mug. It used to feel warmer. "When we first moved here, remember? We laughed with the kids, invited friends, sat on the porch. He chuckled coldly. People change. Neighbors come and go. It's called life. I whispered, or maybe it's called shutting people out. He glanced at me then, his eyes sharp. You've been listening to Helen again, haven't you? I stiffened. She only worries about me. She notices how you act. She should mind her own business, Richard snapped. That woman's nosy. Don't fill your head with her gossip. I lowered my voice. She's not gossiping. He's kind. Sometimes I feel like she's the only one who sees me. He slammed the cup down. I see you. Every day. That should be enough. The words burned. But it isn't. I want to be heard, not just seen. He leaned back, smirking. You always wanted too much. I shook my head. I only wanted a partner. The silence thickened. I felt my throat ache. Finally, I stood and said, I'll visit Helen this afternoon. His eyes narrowed. Why? Because I need company. You're hardly here even when you are. He sneered. Go then. Sit with your widow friend and trade complaints. See if that fills the cracks. I left without replying. Helen welcomed me at her porch with a smile. You look tired, love. Rough night. I forced a laugh. You could say that. She poured tea and patted my hand. You've been quiet lately. Something on your mind. I hesitated, then whispered, It's Richard. The basement, the late nights, the secrets. I feel shut out. Helen's brows furrowed. Has he ever explained why he locks it? Always the same excuse. Safety. She leaned closer. 3 hours at a time isn't safety. It's hiding. I bit my lip. That's what I fear. But every time I ask, he makes me feel small, like I'm crazy. Helen squeezed my hand. You're not crazy. You've carried his silence too long. I've watched it wear you down. My eyes watered. Sometimes I wonder if I even matter to him. Of course you matter, she said firmly. But some men hide pieces of themselves so deep they think no one deserves to see. I whispered, what if those pieces destroy me? Helen's eyes softened. Then you must be strong enough to face them. I nodded slowly, my chest heavy. That evening when Richard returned, I tried again. Richard, do you remember the night Eleanor was born? He frowned, pulling off his coat. What kind of question is that? You held her so gently, I said, smiling faintly. You whispered she was perfect. I've never forgotten it. His expression softened for a flicker. That was a long time ago. But it mattered, I pressed. Back then you let me see your heart. Now I see only walls. His jaw tightened. Enough. I'm tired. I stepped closer. Please. Don't shut me out again. He turned his back. Go to bed, Mary. The door to the basement clicked behind him. I whispered into the dark. The walls are cracking, Richard. And one day they'll fall. It was close to midnight when I heard Richard's voice downstairs. At first I thought he was talking to himself, but then another voice came faintly through the phone. I pressed my ear to the bedroom door. He said softly, almost tenderly, Margaret, you know I can't stay long. My heart dropped. Margaret. A name I hadn't heard in years. I gripped the doorknob until my hand ached. His voice lowered, but I caught pieces. Yes. I'll try tomorrow night. Don't worry, she won't suspect. I pushed the door open and stepped into the hallway. Richard. The phone went silent. He turned, startled. What are you doing up? I folded my arms. Who are you talking to? No one, he said too quickly. Business. At midnight. He stiffened. It was private. I whispered. I heard her name. Margaret. His jaw clenched. You misheard. No, I didn't, I said firmly. Who is she, Richard? He narrowed his eyes. Don't dig where you don't belong. My voice cracked. I am your wife. If she doesn't concern me, then who does? He shoved the phone into his pocket. Go back to bed. I stepped closer. Tell me the truth. There is nothing to tell, he said through gritted teeth. I stared at him, searching his face. You've lied before. His shoulders squared. And you've imagined things before. Tears stung my eyes. Why can't you just be honest? He turned away. Because you wouldn't understand. My chest tightened. Then make me understand. But he walked into the kitchen, ending the conversation. The next day I called Eleanor. Sweetheart, can you come by this weekend? She laughed on the phone. Of course, Mom. Why? Did Dad finally drive you crazy? I tried to sound light. Something like that. Her voice softened. Are you all right? I hesitated. I just need to see you. All right, I'll bring the kids. When she hung up, I sat staring at the receiver, my hands trembling. Should I tell her? Could I? Richard came in suddenly. Who was that? I flinched. Eleanor. She's visiting. He muttered, good. Maybe she'll distract you. I met his eyes. Or maybe she'll see what I see. He smirked. She adores me. She won't believe a word. My stomach knotted. You sound so sure. I am. His confidence was chilling. That evening I sat across from him at dinner. Do you remember when the kids were little? You used to come home late. He chewed slowly. I was working. Every night. He didn't look up. Yes. Funny, I said carefully. I used to wonder if it was something else. His fork clattered. You're still on that? After all these years? Because the questions never left me. He leaned forward. You should have trusted me. I whispered, should I have? His silence was louder than words. Later I sat in the dark living room staring at old photographs. Eleanor smiling, Michael holding a toy car, Richard's arms stiff around us. Helen knocked on the door. Mary? Still awake. I let her in. She frowned at my face. You've been crying. I whispered. I heard him. On the phone. With a woman named Margaret. Helen's eyes widened. So it's true. I gasped. You knew. She sat beside me. I suspected. I've seen him outside late whispering into that phone. I didn't want to tell you unless you asked. My chest caved. How long? Helen's voice softened. Too long, love. Too long. I shook my head. Why didn't I see it? Because you trusted him, she said. Because you wanted to. Tears spilled down my cheeks. I feel like a fool. Helen hugged me tight. No, you're not a fool. You're a woman who gave her whole heart. He's the fool for wasting it. I whispered into her shoulder. I don't know what to do. You face him. Or you wait. Either way, the truth will come out. That night, lying in bed, I stared at Richard's sleeping face. I whispered, who are you really, Richard? And how long have you been lying to me? The basement door creaked in my memory. The phone call echoed in my ears. And for the first time, I wondered if my entire marriage had been built on whispers I wasn't meant to hear. I was cleaning the attic when I found it, an old, dusty box pushed far into a corner. I pulled it out, coughing at the dust, and froze when I saw my handwriting on the cover of a small blue journal. I whispered, "Pie journal. I forgot I even kept this." I sat cross-legged on the floor, fingers trembling as I opened the first page. My voice shook as I read aloud. Dear me, tonight Richard came home late again. He said it was work, but I saw lipstick on his collar. My chest tightened. I wrote this, all those years ago? Just then Richard's voice echoed from downstairs. Harry, where are you? I shoved the journal under my sweater. Up here. Cleaning. He grumbled, don't wear yourself out. When his footsteps faded, I pulled the journal back out and kept reading. Dear me, I feel invisible. He doesn't listen. He doesn't laugh. I wonder if he even loves me anymore. I pressed my hand over my mouth. God, I was begging for answers even then. Later that night, Richard found me in the living room, the journal hidden under a cushion. He asked, why do you look so pale? I forced a smile. Just tired. He narrowed his eyes. What were you doing in the attic? Cleaning, I said quickly. Old boxes. He stepped closer. Anything interesting? I shook my head. Dust. Just dust. He studied me for a long moment before muttering, you dig too much. I swallowed hard. And you hide too much. His jaw tightened. Drop it. I looked away. Maybe I can't this time. The next morning I called Eleanor. Sweetheart, do you remember when you were 10 and your father missed your recital? She laughed softly. Of course. I cried all night. You brought me ice cream to make it better. I whispered, do you know why he missed it? Work, wasn't it? That's what he said, I admitted. But I wrote in my journal that he was out with someone. I don't know if it was true, but it feels true now. Eleanor hesitated. Mom, are you saying Dad was cheating? My throat closed. I don't know. I'm scared to say it out loud. Her voice trembled. Do you want me to come over? Yes, I whispered. Please. When I told Helen about the journal, she leaned in, eyes wide. You wrote all this when it was happening? I nodded. Page after page. My suspicions. My tears. My loneliness. And I still stayed. Helen said softly, that's what we do when we love. We hope it will change. I opened the journal and read aloud. Dear me, I feel like a ghost in my own home. Richard looks at me like I'm furniture, not a wife. Helen's eyes glistened. Mary, you've carried this silence too long. I was so weak back then, I whispered. Why didn't I leave? Because you had children, she said. Because you believed he would get better. Don't punish yourself for surviving. I pressed my hand against the page. But what if surviving meant I lost myself? Helen grabbed my hand. Then maybe it's time to find yourself again. That evening, Eleanor arrived with her kids. She hugged me tight. Mom, you look exhausted. I smiled weakly. I've just been remembering too much. Her little daughter climbed onto my lap. Grandma, tell me a story. I kissed her hair. One day, sweetheart. Grandma's too tired tonight. When Eleanor tucked the children into bed, she turned to me. Show me the journal. I hesitated. It's too heavy for you. I can handle it, she said. Please. I handed it over. She read silently, page after page, her eyes filling. Finally, she whispered, He really said these things to you? Yes, I whispered. And worse. He told me once I was lucky he stayed. Eleanor's jaw tightened. I can't believe I never saw it. I stroked her arm. I never wanted you to. I wanted you to think we were strong. She shook her head. Mom, you were strong. Stronger than I realized. Tears spilled down my cheeks. Then why do I feel broken? Eleanor hugged me. Because you carried pain alone. You don't have to anymore. When Richard came home and saw Eleanor, his face hardened. Why is she here? Eleanor said coldly, because Mom needed me. Richard's eyes flicked to me. Needed you for what? I straightened my back. For the truth. For what I should have said years ago. His voice dropped, dangerous. What truth? I whispered, that you've been hiding from me. That I knew it then and I know it now. He sneered. You've been reading old fairy tales in that dusty head of yours. Eleanor snapped. She's not imagining. She's remembering. Richard glared at her, then at me. You'll regret this. I whispered back. Not anymore. I regret staying silent. That night, when the house grew quiet, I sat with the journal on my lap. I whispered to the pages, I'm not that broken woman anymore. I found my voice. The words didn't erase the past, but they lit something inside me. A spark I hadn't felt in decades. And I knew, the silence was ending. The night after Eleanor left, the house grew unbearably quiet. Richard sat in his chair, staring at the muted television, and I sat across from him, clutching the journal to my chest. For 3 hours, neither of us spoke. The silence was louder than any argument. Finally, Richard broke it. You shouldn't have shown her. I whispered, she deserved to know. His voice sharpened. That was between us, Mary. Our marriage. Our business. I looked at him, my hands trembling. You made it my prison. He slammed his hand on the armrest. Stop with the dramatics. You're blowing old scribbles out of proportion. I held the journal up. These scribbles are my tears. My pain. Every night you broke me down. He sneered. If it was so bad, why didn't you leave? My voice cracked. Because I thought love meant staying. Because I had children. Because I was scared. For a moment something flickered in his eyes. Guilt, maybe, but then it was gone. You're rewriting history. I opened the journal and read aloud, my voice shaking. Dear me, he came home smelling of perfume tonight. I asked him where he was and he laughed in my face. Richard's jaw clenched. You kept score of every little thing. No wonder you're miserable. My throat burned. I wasn't keeping score. I was begging for my life back. The clock ticked. 10 minutes passed. 20. Neither of us spoke. The silence returned, heavier than before. Finally, I whispered, Do you remember Eleanor's recital? She looked for you in the crowd and you never came. Richard rubbed his temples. Work. No, I said firmly. You weren't at work. You were with her. His head snapped toward me. Don't you dare. Tears spilled down my cheeks. Say her name, Richard. Say it. He stood abruptly. Enough. I whispered. I saw the lipstick. I smelled the perfume. I heard the lies. He loomed over me, his voice low and dangerous. Careful, Mary. For the first time in decades I didn't flinch. No. You be careful. Because silence isn't my cage anymore. It's my weapon. The room grew still again. He sat down but his legs shook, restless. I watched him like I was seeing him for the first time. Not the man I married but the man who kept me small. 3 hours passed in that silence. 3 hours where every memory, every bruise on my heart came alive. Finally I whispered to myself, I should have left long ago. Richard turned sharply. What did you say? I looked him in the eye. I said I should have left you long ago. He opened his mouth to speak but nothing came. For the first time he was the one who had no words. The next morning I called Helen. He didn't deny it, I whispered into the phone. She sighed. Of course he didn't. Men like him rarely do. They think silence will protect them. I asked, then why do I still feel guilty? Helen's voice softened. As you were trained to. But guilt isn't yours to carry anymore. I sat at the kitchen table staring at the journal. I think I'm ready to show the world. Not just Eleanor. Everyone. Helen was quiet, then said, Mary, that's brave. And dangerous. I don't care, I whispered. I've wasted too many years. Silence isn't safety, it's poison. That evening Eleanor called. Mom, the kids asked about Grandpa. What do I tell them? I closed my eyes. Tell them the truth. That love should never hurt. That silence isn't strength. Her voice broke. Mom, I'm proud of you. Tears slid down my face. For what? For finally speaking. That night Richard stayed in the guest room. The silence between us had grown into a wall, taller than any we'd ever built. And for the first time in years I felt safe behind it. The next morning I walked out to fetch the mail and Mrs. Green from across the street waved. Her eyes lingered on me longer than usual. Morning, Mary, she said, her voice careful. I forced a smile. Morning. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Everything all right at your house? I saw Richard outside late last night. Looked upset. My heart skipped. We had a disagreement. Her lips pressed thin. Well, folks talk. You know how this neighborhood is. I swallowed. What are they saying? She hesitated. That Richard's been seen with a woman at the diner. Younger. My hands shook around the letters. People really notice that? She gave me a sad smile. Honey, people notice everything. They just don't always tell you. Later that day Richard came in from the yard, his face red with anger. What did you tell her? I looked up from the sink. Tell who? Mrs. Green. She hinted at something. Don't play dumb, Mary. I set down the dish towel. I didn't say a word. She already knew. He slammed the counter. This is exactly why you should have stayed quiet. You start whispering, neighbors start whispering, and then the whole damn world thinks they know me. I met his eyes. Maybe they should know you. The real you. His voice dropped. Careful. I whispered. You've said that word too many times. That evening I called Eleanor. The neighbors know. They've seen him. She sucked in her breath. Mom, that's good. It means you're not crazy. You're not imagining things. I sank into the chair. But it also means shame. I can't walk outside without feeling eyes on me. Eleanor's voice hardened. Mom, you're not the one who should feel ashamed. He is. But everyone whispers, I said softly. And whispers cut deep. Then let them whisper, she snapped. Their voices don't define you. 2 days later I ran into Helen at the grocery store. She hugged me tightly, then whispered, I heard. I pulled back. Everyone has. Her eyes filled with sympathy. They'll talk, Mary. But talk fades. What matters is what you do now. I sighed. What if I'm too old to start again? Helen shook her head. You're never too old to breathe free air. I almost cried right there in the aisle. I don't know if I'm strong enough. He held my hand. You already are. You're speaking. That's strength. That night Richard confronted me again. His voice was cold. Do you enjoy embarrassing me? I sat at the table, the journal in front of me. No. I enjoy finally being seen. He leaned closer. You think those whispers make you powerful? They don't. They make you pathetic. I closed my eyes. For years I believed that. Not anymore. He snarled. Keep pushing me, Mary, and you'll regret it. I opened the journal, flipping to a random page. March 14th. He told me if I ever spoke out, no one would believe me. Guess what, Richard? They believe me now. For once he had no answer. The following morning I walked past Mrs. Green's yard again. She smiled softly. Mary, don't let gossip break you. Sometimes whispers are the first crack in a lie. I paused, tears stinging my eyes. Thank you. She nodded. We see more than you think. That night I sat alone in the kitchen, phone in hand. Eleanor called again. How are you holding up? I whispered. I feel naked, like every secret is hanging in the air. She said gently, and yet, isn't it lighter than carrying it all alone? I thought for a long time. Then I whispered, yes. Lighter. When Richard came in, he didn't look at me. He went straight upstairs without a word. The silence between us was no longer mine to fear. For the first time, the whispers outside felt less like knives, and more like a chorus telling me I wasn't alone. The night it all broke open, the air in the house felt heavy, almost poisonous. I sat at the kitchen table with the journal spread wide, pages trembling under my fingers. Richard stormed in, his eyes dark, his jaw tight. What are you planning? He demanded. I didn't look up. I'm planning to stop being silent. His voice rose. You're humiliating me. The neighbors, the whispers, Eleanor's cold stares. You've poisoned everything. I lifted my eyes slowly. No, Richard. You poisoned it. I only opened the window so the smell could escape. He slammed the table, the journal jumping under his fist. Shut that mouth before I stood my chair, scraping. Before you what? Hit me like you almost did that night in '97? Or break me down with words until I disappear? His face twisted. Don't rewrite history. I jabbed a finger at the journal. It's not rewritten. It's written. Every scar, every silence, every betrayal. You're in here, Richard. He sneered. A bitter old woman with her scribbles. No one will care. My voice cracked but didn't falter. Eleanor cared. Helen cared. Even Mrs. Green across the street cares. And soon more will. He paced, running his hands through his hair. You'll ruin me. I whispered. You ruined yourself. He whirled on me. I gave you everything. A home. Children. Security. And this is how you repay me. I laughed bitterly. You gave me walls and locks. You gave me loneliness in a crowded house. You gave me silence. His fists curled. You're not leaving me. I won't let you. I straightened my shoulders, heart pounding. You don't get to decide that anymore. He lunged toward the journal, but I grabbed it first, clutching it to my chest. Give it here, he growled. No, I whispered. This is my voice. My proof. My freedom. Just then, Eleanor's voice rang from the doorway. Stop. We both froze. She stood there, her face pale but determined. I came to check on Mom. And I heard everything. Richard's face reddened. You don't belong in this conversation. She stepped inside, her chin high. I belong because she's my mother. And I won't let you bully her anymore. He glared. You ungrateful child. After everything I've done for you. She cut him off. Everything you've done for me? You think absence is a gift? You think betrayal is fatherhood? I gasped softly. Eleanor. He turned to me. Mom, you're not alone. Not anymore. Richard's voice shook with rage. She's poisoning you against me. Eleanor laughed harshly. You don't need to poison someone against you. Your actions did that years ago. He pointed at her. Out. Get out of my house. She shot back. Your house? It's hers too. And if you had any respect left, you'd know that. He advanced on her, his finger jabbing the air. You'll regret siding with her. I stepped between them. No, Richard. You'll regret underestimating us. The room pulsed with silence again, but this time it wasn't my prison. It was my weapon. Finally, Eleanor said, Mom, pack a bag. Tonight. Richard laughed coldly. You think she's going anywhere? I met his eyes. Yes. I am. His voice dropped to a growl. You'll regret this, Mary. For the first time I didn't tremble. Maybe. but not as much as I regret wasting 25 years on silence. Eleanor squeezed my hand. Come on. Let's go. I nodded slowly. My legs felt weak but I moved. Richard shouted behind us, but his words blurred into meaningless noise. At the door I turned once more. He stood there red-faced, fists shaking. For a moment I almost pitied him. But then I remembered the 3 hours of silence, the basement door, the lipstick stains, the journal pages filled with tears. Goodbye, Richard, I whispered. In the car, Eleanor drove in silence until she finally asked, Do you feel free? I stared out the window at the dark road. Not yet. But I feel alive. And that's a start. She reached over, squeezing my hand. We'll get through this. Together. For the first time in years I believed her. That night, lying in her guest room, I opened the journal again. The words blurred through my tears, but they no longer felt like chains. They felt like stepping stones. I whispered to myself, the breaking point isn't the end. It's the beginning. The morning after I left, I woke in Eleanor's house, sunlight spilling across her guest room. The journal lay beside me, heavy but no longer unbearable. I traced its cover, whispering, It's time. When I walked into the kitchen, Eleanor poured coffee. You barely slept. I nodded. I was reading. Her eyes softened. Still the journal? Yes, I said, sitting down. But not just for me anymore. It needs to speak for me. Eleanor set the mug in front of me. What do you mean? I whispered, I want people to know what happened. All of it. Not just whispers. Truth. Her eyebrows rose. You mean sharing it? Yes. I swallowed hard. But I don't know how. Letters? Online? A group? I don't want to hide anymore. Later that afternoon, Helen came over. She hugged me tightly. I heard you left. I'm proud of you. I smiled faintly. It doesn't feel brave. It feels unfinished. Helen pulled out a chair. Tell me. I slid the journal across the table. It's all here. Every betrayal. Every silence. I want people to hear it. She flipped a few pages, her face tightening. This is powerful. Painful but powerful. I kept quiet for too long, I said. Now I want my words to break the silence. Eleanor leaned in. Mom wants to share it publicly. Helen's eyes widened. That's a big step. I know, I whispered. But what's the point of surviving if I stay invisible? Helen suggested, there's a women's support group at the church. They let members share testimonies. You could start there. My chest tightened. Testimonies? Speaking out loud. Eleanor touched my arm. Mom, you've been speaking. To me. To Helen. You can do this. I shook my head. But what if no one listens? Helen smiled gently. They will. Because your story is theirs too. The following evening I stood in the small church hall, clutching the journal. Women filled the chairs, murmuring softly. My palms were sweaty. Eleanor whispered, Breathe. You're not alone. When it was my turn, I walked to the front. My knees wobbled, but I opened the journal anyway. I read aloud, February 12th. He came home late. I smelled perfume. When I asked, he told me I was paranoid. That I made things up. I went to bed crying, but I wrote this down because I needed proof I wasn't crazy. A woman in the front row nodded, tears glistening. I continued, March 3rd. I begged him to sit with Eleanor at her recital. He promised he would. He never came. I told myself it was work, but deep down I knew. The room was silent. Heavy. Listening. Finally I closed the journal. My voice shook. For 25 years I thought silence was survival. But silence was my prison. Today I choose to break it. The women clapped softly, some crying, some whispering, Afterward a woman approached me. She had deep lines on her face and kind eyes. Thank you, she whispered. You spoke my story. I've never told anyone, but hearing you, I think I can now. I squeezed her hand. Then the journal is already doing its job. Back at Eleanor's I sat on the couch, drained but lighter. She smiled. You were incredible. I shook my head. I was terrified. That's what made it powerful, she said softly. Helen added, Mary, your words touched people. This is just the beginning. That night Richard called. His voice was sharp. I heard what you did. Parading our marriage like a circus act. I gripped the phone. It wasn't a parade. It was truth. He hissed, "You'll regret humiliating me." I whispered, "No, Richard. You'll regret underestimating me." And I hung up. I sat in bed, journal in my lap, heart pounding. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was scribbling secrets. I felt like I was writing history, my history. I whispered into the dark, "The journal speaks for me now. And I won't be silent again." 2 days after I spoke at the church, the phone started ringing more than usual. Sometimes I picked up, sometimes I let it ring. But one evening when I finally answered, it was Mrs. Green's voice on the line. "Mary, I thought you should know," she whispered. "People are talking. About Richard." I tightened my grip. "What are they saying?" "That the woman he was seen with, she's not showing up anymore. She's telling people she made a mistake getting involved with him. Apparently he wasn't as charming as he pretended." My chest rose. "So now it begins." Mrs. Green paused. "It's not just gossip. His company called my husband. They're looking into his conduct. Something about personal relationships at work." I almost laughed. The man who locked me in silence can't control his own lies anymore. That night Richard called me again. His voice was harsh, desperate. "Mary, you need to stop this." I stayed calm. "Stop what?" "Speaking the truth." He snapped, "Do you know what's happening? My reputation is being shredded. People are questioning me at work. The board wants answers." I let silence stretch before I said, "Maybe they're tired of silence too." He shouted, "This is your fault." I whispered, "No, Richard. This is yours." And I hung up. Later, Eleanor came by with her kids. She hugged me tightly. "Mom, you won't believe this. Dad called me earlier. He was begging me to tell people you're exaggerating." I froze. "He begged?" "Yes," she said. "He said if I defended him he could smooth things over." I told him no. I told him the truth is louder now. Tears filled my eyes. "You really said that?" She nodded firmly. "I did. For you. For us." I whispered, "Thank you." The next morning Helen came over with fresh bread. She sat across from me. Word spreads fast. "I heard from someone at church. Richard's losing contracts. Clients don't want to work with a man accused of deception." I blinked. "Already?" Helen nodded. "The cracks are showing." I whispered, "For 25 years I was the one who cracked. Now it's his turn." That evening another call came. This time it wasn't Richard. It was one of his colleagues, a man named Peter who'd been at our house once years ago. "Mary," he said quietly, "I shouldn't be calling but I need you to know. Richard's in trouble at work. There's an investigation. If there are things you can confirm." I stiffened. "You mean my journal?" "Yes," he admitted. "People are finally listening. And if you're willing to share, it could end his career." I glanced at the journal on the table. My voice shook. "I'll think about it." When I told Eleanor, she looked at me steadily. "Mom, this is justice. You don't need revenge. Just keep telling the truth. Let the truth do the rest." I sighed. "But part of me still feels guilty." She took my hand. "Then remember this. Every time you stayed silent, he grew stronger. Every time you speak, you take that power back." That night, Richard showed up at Eleanor's house. He stood outside the door, pounding. Eleanor refused to open it, but I heard his voice through the wood. "Mary, don't do this. Don't destroy me. I'll change, I'll fix it, just stop." My knees shook, but Eleanor stood tall. "Mom, don't answer. He's desperate, not sorry." I whispered, "I know." His voice cracked outside. "You'll regret this, Mary. Don't think they care about you. They'll forget you once I'm gone." I stepped forward, close enough to the door for him to hear. "Richard, the world finally sees you. And I don't need them to remember me. I just need them to remember the truth." The pounding stopped. Silence fell. Then footsteps faded away. Later that night I sat with Eleanor on the couch. She asked softly, "Do you feel safe?" I hugged the journal close. For the first time, yes. Because he's the one running now, not me. Eleanor smiled through tears. "Then it's working. Karma doesn't knock politely. It kicks the door in." I closed my eyes and whispered, "And Richard's door is finally breaking." I didn't expect it to end the way it did. I thought Richard would keep shouting, keep threatening, keep hiding behind silence. But karma doesn't whisper forever. It roars. It was a gray morning when I got the call. "Mrs. Harris," the voice asked. "This is Detective Mills. Your husband has been brought in for questioning. Financial misconduct. Possible fraud. We may need your cooperation." My heart stilled. "Fraud?" "Yes, ma'am. We've had multiple complaints. We understand you kept a journal." I hesitated, my eyes on the book resting on the table. "Yes, I did." "Then you may want to bring it down to the station," he said. When I told Eleanor, she stared at me wide-eyed. "Mom, this is it. This is the end." I shook my head slowly. "No, this is the beginning." He grabbed my hands. "You don't have to go if it's too much." I looked at her, tears welling. For 25 years I was his shadow. Today I choose to stand in the light. At the station, Richard sat at the table, pale and worn. His suit looked wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. When he saw me walk in with the journal, his face twisted. "You," he spat. I sat across from him, my hands steady on the book. "Me." He leaned forward, his voice low. "Don't do this, Mary. Don't destroy me. We can fix it. We can start over." I laughed bitterly. "Start over? After 25 years of lies?" His voice cracked. "I'll change. I'll give you anything you want. Just stop this madness." I whispered, "What I want is freedom. And you can't give it to me. Only I can." Detective Mills stepped in. "Mrs. Harris, are you willing to provide testimony from your journal?" I opened it, pages fluttering. My voice trembled but grew stronger as I read. September 19th. "He told me if I ever left I'd have nothing." He laughed while I cried, saying silence was cheaper than divorce. Richard flinched. I turned another page. January 5th. "He bragged about hiding money from the company in special accounts. He said no one would ever find them." Detective Mills scribbled notes. "That's consistent with what we've uncovered." Richard slammed his fist on the table. "Harry, stop." I looked at him coldly. "For years you told me to stop. Stop asking. Stop speaking. Stop living. I won't stop anymore." After the questioning, they escorted him out in handcuffs. He turned to me one last time, eyes wild. "You'll regret this. You'll die alone." I whispered, "Better alone than with a ghost who never loved me." Outside the station, Eleanor hugged me tight. "Mom, it's over." I shook my head. "No, Eleanor. It's justice beginning." The weeks that followed were a blur. Word spread fast. His company dropped him. The woman he had paraded in secret gave testimony too. Neighbors who once whispered behind closed doors now whispered about his downfall. One afternoon, Mrs. Green stopped me at the mailbox. "Mary, I'll admit, I doubted you once. But you were right all along. And I respect you." I smiled faintly. "It's not about being right. It's about finally being heard." Richard called from jail once. His voice was hoarse, broken. "Mary, please. I'm sorry." I closed my eyes, gripping the phone. I waited 25 years for those words. And now they mean nothing. He begged. "I have nothing left." I whispered, "Now you know how I felt." And I hung up. At church, I was invited to speak again. This time I didn't just read from the journal. I told the women, silence is not survival. Silence is surrender. And I will never surrender again. The room erupted in applause. Tears filled my eyes, but they weren't the same tears I'd cried for decades. These were tears of release. One evening, Eleanor sat beside me on her porch swing. The sky was painted in soft orange and pink. She asked, "Do you feel free now?" I thought about it. I feel lighter. But freedom isn't just leaving him. It's choosing myself every day. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "I'm proud of you." I smiled. "I'm proud of me too. Finally." That night I wrote one last entry in the journal. Today I closed the book not as a prisoner but as a survivor. My voice is no longer hidden on paper. It lives in the open air. Richard's silence was my cage, but my words became the key. This is the end of his story, but the beginning of mine. I closed the journal gently and set it aside. For the first time I didn't feel like I needed it anymore. I whispered into the quiet room, "I am free." And for once the silence that answered me felt like peace. I never imagined life could feel this gentle. After Richard was gone, there were days I thought emptiness would swallow me whole. But instead I discovered space. Space for laughter, for rest, for truth. Eleanor visits every Sunday. Today she came with her daughter Claire, who ran straight into my arms. Grandma, Claire giggled, tell me one of your stories. I laughed softly. Which one, sweetheart? The one about the bird in the basement window, she said. Eleanor groaned playfully. She loves that one. Even though it's sad. I kissed Claire's forehead. It's not sad anymore. That bird taught me something important. Claire asked, wide-eyed, what? That even when you feel trapped you still have wings, I said. She clapped her hands. That's happy. Eleanor smiled at me knowingly. Hey, Mom. You turned pain into lessons. I touched her hand. I didn't know I could. But surviving made me a teacher. Later, after they left, I sat on the porch swing with Mrs. Green. She rocked gently beside me sipping tea. She said, you've changed, Mary. You used to walk with your head down. Now you look people straight in the eye. I chuckled. That's because I finally see myself. She tilted her head. And Richard. I inhaled slowly. He's gone from my life. And for once I don't feel haunted. I pity him, but I don't carry him anymore. Mrs. Green nodded. That's freedom. At church, women still ask me questions. How did you leave? How did you stay strong? I tell them, strength doesn't come all at once. It's built in whispers, each small decision to speak when silence seems easier. One woman cried, I don't know if I can. I hugged her gently. Then borrow my voice until you find yours. In the evenings I walk through my garden. The roses Richard once dismissed as pointless bloom brighter than ever. Sometimes I talk to them, silly as it sounds. Look at us, I whisper to the petals. We both survived winters. And the garden listens with quiet grace. One night, Eleanor called me, her voice trembling. Mom, Claire asked if Grandpa was bad. I hesitated, then said softly, tell her he was broken. But tell her we chose healing. Eleanor sniffled. You amaze me. You could be bitter, but instead you're whole. I smiled into the phone. I'm whole because I decided to be. Now when I open my journal, I don't write secrets. I write dreams. Tomorrow, I scribbled last night, I will plant lavender. I will laugh without fear. I will live in the sunlight. And for the first time in decades, those words aren't hopes. They are promises. I close the book, place it on the shelf, and whisper to myself, I am free. And freedom is just the beginning.